Yo, what's up? This is Jay Dennis, and we're back with another... and reviewed. If you didn't already know this about me, I am a vocalist, and I'm also a guitarist for 15 years, but I typically don't do the two together, unless I'm playing acoustic. I'm the front man of my band Raptor Riot, but I also play a lot of guitar, so thank you for entertaining that, but we're going to leave that well enough alone. Hello? Yeah, so we are doing a band that is very much admired, extremely consistent, and for a while, definitely one of my favorite alternative metal, hard rock, post-grunge bands, Chevelle! Yeah, they recently put out a new album in the last month, so I was already planning on going back and revisiting their discography, and people are starting to really jump on this whole ranking and reviewing of their discography, so my idea is kind of coming to fruition beyond that. So anyway, going to be doing their 9 studio albums from, I believe it was 1999 to this year, 2021. Let me see here. Yeah, I've been listening to Chevelle quite a bit since the mid-2000s, my sophomore year of high school, of course, another band that I got into that year. And again in 2010, I was very much into the Venocera, Sci-Fi Crimes era, and then in 2011, Hats Off to the Bull was where my interest kind of started to wane for a little bit, and on again, off again, listened to them throughout the last decade, but they haven't put out an album since 2016 up until this newest album, Neuratios. And, but going back and listening to them again, yeah, they sound just as good, if not better. And just like with every other Ranked and Reviewed that I do, I'm very grateful to have revisited albums that I may have missed. And, of course, revisited albums that I listened to a lot more back then. But maybe there were some tracks I didn't appreciate enough back then. They certainly have aged well. I really enjoy this band. I love their sound. I love Pete as a frontman, vocalist, guitar player. I love the tones they use. And I like the different elements of hard rock and metal, a little bit of new metal, radio rock. Sounds that they've done over the years. So once again, another extremely consistent band. The good news is with this fucking ranking, there's no ties, thank God. The spread is roughly a 7.7 out of 10. That's the lowest ranked album to the highest ranked album, which is a 8.75. So roughly a 1 point spread between 9 albums. Each place roughly gets 0.1 better. So there's no ties, but each one gets incrementally better. So it's not like really any albums shit on prior albums, but I would certainly say their top 2 albums are certainly better than their bottom 2 albums. So without further ado, I don't want to make this one super long. I'm going to go through my ranking of their 9 studio albums and rattle off my top 10 songs at the end. So once again, Chevelle, excellent alternative metal band. Really, really enjoy them. At the number 9 spot, we have their first release, Point Number 1. I've noticed a lot of people tend to put this one at the bottom. I've listened to it a few times, and it just does not grow on you. It doesn't grow on me. There are a handful of good tracks, though. The title track, Point Number 1, is good. The songs, I think the best song on the album is called Blank Earth. I think that's what it's called. And then SMA. Those are pretty solid tracks. But, you know, it's a late 90s alternative rock album, but the energy's not super high. Chevelle hasn't really gotten into their sound, but I will say that as a first release, it's pretty solid. I can see how this would have projected them into future success, but I've read some philosophies that a lot of fans don't consider this their first album. They consider Wonder What's Next their first album. But Point Number 1 is technically a full-length album, and it's part of their discography, so not super memorable, not something I'd go back and listen to a lot, and I'd probably put, maybe 1 or 2 songs off of this on a Chevelle playlist, but, Point Number 1 is an actual track that I guess they still keep on their live set. But again, it's good for what it is. It's just a preference thing. It's just not my favorite, but it's a solid first release. That's why I at least gave it like a good rating, but certainly not a great album. Number 9 spot, their first release, point number 1. The number 8 spot, probably going to get a little bit of heat for this, but it's my opinion. Their 2014 release, La Guergala, which is Spanish for the gargoyle. I know this has nothing to do with the actual album, but it's kind of my least favorite album title and my least favorite album artwork. I don't know what it is. It's like a surgical mask with like the pointy nose. I forgot exactly what they were depicting there, but I don't like theatrical looking stuff. It looks like a Phantom of the Opera thing, so it kind of turns me off. But La Guergala, to its credit though, I can understand why a lot of people would rank this one higher up or even at their top spot. Like, I get it. Great Chevelle song, by the way. I get it. La Guergala, first impression, I thought it was terrible. I thought that it was boring. I thought it was inconsistent. I thought it was like their lowest energy album. But then I listened to it a few more times because I do that with these ranked reviews. I really want to know what I'm talking about with these albums. I don't just churn these videos out. I actually want to know what I'm talking about and have insights about the albums. It grew on me. And originally I thought this was going to be their worst album, but it ended up easily overtaking their point number 1 album. Originally when I said bad first impression, I think Ouija Board's actually probably one of the better songs on the album, so it doesn't open on a bad note, but it certainly slows down with An Island, which I know that's a single, and I know it's kind of like a lot of people's song they like off this album. I think it's kind of the weakest track on the album, along with Hunter Eats Hunter. Kind of your more repetitive songs where Pete's vocals aren't exactly my preference with regards to his edge or his singing, mixed with kind of generic guitar work. It kind of drags the album down. But the songs on this album that really helped bring it back up for me were, of course, Jawbreaker. I think it's the best song on the album. It's not a song I listen to a whole lot, but One Ocean has very much a mellow Muse vibe. So One Ocean's a great track. Choking Game is a solid track as well. Take Out the Gunman's a pretty good single. But yeah, so aside from Hunter Eats Hunter and An Island, it's a pretty consistent album. Again, I give this one like a 7.9 out of 10. So it's like a really good album, but it's not great. It's more experimental, but to me it's just kind of lower energy and just not their best work. But I get when it comes down to preference and maybe which of Chevelle's sounds you prefer, I get why maybe somebody would put this one higher up. But for me, La Guergala is one of their weaker albums. And even in 2014 when I saw it like at Target or like I tried to get into it during like post-hardcore new metal resurgence phase of my life, which new metal's not a phase for me, it is my life. This album didn't really leave that much of an impact for me. Number 8 spot, 2014's La Guergala. Number 7 spot, their 2011 release, Hats Off to the Bull. Another not great album title. It's kind of corny. But this one, much like La Guergala, it was a grower. I was a little bit familiar with this album when it came out. I had Same Old Trip and Arise on my iPod back then. Like I bought those songs off iTunes. Clones is also a pretty solid track. Face to the Floor isn't one of their better opening tracks, but it's not a bad opening track by any means. It's a pretty decent single. But Hats Off to the Bull has got to be their worst single, at least like album title single. I don't really care for that song. It's kind of corny. It just sounds like, my initial reaction was, oh, this is where they're going full radio rock. They're kind of selling out, kind of getting, butt rock vibes from this album. But I was wrong. I went back and listened to it from start to finish. There's some heaviness there. I think Prima Donna's the soft track. I like that one. But like Revenge, Ruse, The Meddler, all great songs. Envy, another great track. But, a couple songs like Pinata, and again, Hats Off to the Bull kind of dragged this one down. So, again, not one of their higher energy albums, but I think it's marginally better. I gave this one an 8 out of 10. So, again, literally like a 0.1 difference between these bottom 3 releases. Just marginally better than La Guergala because of a little bit more consistency. But songs like Same Old Trip and Arise and Clones have higher ratings that definitely elevate this album higher up. So that's their number 7. That's the number 7 spot. Hats off to the Bull. Not their most memorable album to me, but it's definitely worth a listen. And I can see how this album is also a fan favorite. Number 6, we have their newest album, Nira Tias, which is a acronym for Nothing Is Real and This Is a Simulation. So I butchered it. I've heard of people butcher it. Like, is it Narishas? Nira Tias? I think it's Nira Tias. But it's an acronym. I've noticed a lot of positive feedback for this album, and I agree with a lot of it. This is a concept album. It's experimental. I like it. I like the storytelling. Contrary to other opinions, I actually like the transition tracks. Test, Verrucht, and a few others. I didn't write them all down because I don't usually rate transition or interludes. But this one has a few more higher rated songs like Self-Destructor. Fucking Pistol Star is an excellent song. The chorus of So Long Mother Earth is awesome. Mars Simula. Basically the first handful of tracks on this album are pretty damn solid. I think Peach is overrated though. I think it's a weak track. Not a bad song or not even a mediocre song. It's just not a great song. I think it's a preference thing. If I'm looking for a heavier, edgier song, I'm not going to turn to newer Chevelle. I'm going to go to older or middle Chevelle for that. Remember When, Endlessly, Ghost and Razor, all great songs. And I also think Lost in Digital Woods is a pretty solid closing track. So Nira Tias is marginally better than Hats Off to the Bull. And I think it took them 5 years to release this for whatever reasons. But their feedback is they're hoping that if they get good feedback from the fans, they'll keep putting out music quicker than if they received bad feedback. So Chevelle, if you're listening, great feedback. This is a great album. I really enjoy it. It's a grower. It took me a few listens to really appreciate it, but I appreciate what y'all did with this album. 9 albums deep. You're still putting out high quality music. I think Nira Tias is definitely one of the better albums that they've put out in a while. And sorry if I keep butchering it, but I know that it's a acronym. Nothing is real, and this is a simulation. Number 5 spot goes to the best album that they put out in the 2010s, The North Corridor. Came out in 2016 during a time where a lot of bands were re-implementing nu metal into their work. North Corridor is generally attributed as their heaviest album. I kind of agree with that. It's certainly the heaviest album that they put out on the back half of their catalog. It's got more of an edge. It's got more screaming. It's got more nu metal vibes. It's got more catchiness. And in my opinion, up until the last 2 tracks, this is kind of their most consistent album. Nothing that really breaks the 8.5 out of 10 mark with regards to like super memorable, excellent tracks, but like just the consistency of the albums or of the songs within the album are pretty solid. Joyride is a great single. I think that's the one where he goes, yes, sir. Enemies is awesome. My favorite tracks are, aside from Joyride, I like Young Wicked, which has a great nu metal sound to it. And then Warhol's Showbiz, that chorus. A lot of nu metal energy in that. I love it. And that's either with the aggressive vocals, which Pete does very well, or just kind of the way the rhythm section complements a heavily distorted guitar. That's nu metal. Nu metal can have a lot of different definitions, but for Chevelle, as you'll see with these higher ranked albums, I'm going to get into more specifics as to why the nu metal sound really, really fits them. Punchline is a great soft track. I like the electronics of that. It's kind of a nice palate cleanser. And then the last 2 tracks, not particularly my favorites, but if they were better, this album probably would have ranked a little bit higher. But North Corridor got an 8.2 out of 10. Again, it is pretty much one of their heaviest albums and definitely the best album they put out in the 2010s. Kind of overlooked when it came out, but I did listen to a handful of singles and Door to Door Cannibals a bit during that time. That's why I'm revisiting these albums so that I can appreciate what I missed. Number 4 spot goes to their 2009 release, Sci-Fi Crimes. Another very consistent album. This one just opens on such a great note, though. This is what we're really going to notice with some of these top Chevelle albums is that they open on such a great note. And again, so far with all these rankings, it's just getting like 0.1 better, like from like 7.7 to 7.9 to 8 to 8.1 to 8.2. Sci-Fi Crimes has an 8.3 out of 10. For all you analytical people out there that like really specific ratings. It opens up with one of their best opening tracks, Sleep Apnea. Very memorable chorus, very memorable riff, even if it's simple. What Chevelle does super well is I'm sure Pete can play the hell out of a guitar, but he doesn't get overly technical or really fast that often. But the dynamics of his playing and the way he makes his voice match it, it's really fucking high quality. And the final chorus of Sleep Apnea with like that lead guitar work is just, it like makes me think of like a powerful song from like Hybrid Theory. Of course, it's in the same key, C sharp minor. So I've got good memories to this album. I did listen to it a bit in 2010, especially during Christmas. Mexican Sun, it kind of keeps the momentum of the album going right off the top. Shameful Metaphors and Jars keeps it going as well. Letter from a Thief is actually very thoughtful song. Of course, it was something annoying that happened that made him write it, but it's a great song. Highland's Apparition has got to be the best acoustic track that they've written. To this day, I still get goosebumps when I hear that chorus. You know, I don't think you're nervous enough. Like, it's such a good, beautiful, powerful, mellow song. And then, you know, kind of like North Corridor, it doesn't close on the highest note, but like it's front loaded and kind of middle loaded with so many good tracks that it elevates it higher up. And of course, Sleep Apnea and Mexican Sun, the best songs, Highland's Apparition, the best songs in the album are getting towards that excellent range enough to where it elevates the score higher up. But Sci-Fi Crimes, I understand why a lot of people rank this album higher up. I certainly do too. It's a great album. It's aged very well. And it's kind of the Niratias of, 2009, I guess. Now we're to the top three. Number 3, I'm surprised this one got here, but here it is. We have their 2002 release, their sophomore success, Wonder What's Next. This is kind of the album, one of the albums from like my sophomore year, like where my buddy loaned me Wonder What's Next and This Type of Thing Could Do Us In. Like he let me borrow them and I put them on my iPod. Fucking Family System, dude. That song, the guitar riffs, the it's such a fucking heavy, great song. This is a turn of the century alternative new metal album. Kind of the radio rock really came out here. On the heavier end, of course, for what was more trendy during the early 2000s. But like this album's got some of their most iconic tracks. It's got Family System. It's got Send the Pain Below, The Red. One of my personal favorites is Don't Fake This. I just love that. Sorry, I can't sing right now. Forever. And I thought this one would originally rank at the top. I get why a lot of people put this one at the top too. It's kind of an iconic album, but it's just not as consistent or have as many consistently powerful tracks as the top 2 albums. Comfortable Liar is quite a bit of drop in energy compared to Family System. But then it picks back up with Send the Pain Below and Closure and The Red. But Forfeit and Grab Thy Hand are great tracks, and so is An Evening with El Diablo, but they're just not high octane enough to elevate this one to the top. And then One Lonely Visitor is such a weird closing track. It is by no means Chevelle's worst song, but it's definitely one of their weaker closing tracks, and that kind of dragged the score down a little bit. So maybe if they had a better closing track, it could have gotten a little bit higher. But Wonder What's Next got an 8.4 out of 10, and then the following album got an 8.5. So probably would have been the same ranking. So love this album. Got a lot of great memories to it. The best songs are Family System, The Red, and Don't Fake This. Also, Send the Pain Below is a great single too. Number 2 spot goes to the following album, This Type of Thing Could Do Us In, from 2004. And again, more potent memories. Middle school going into high school, watching the music video for Vitamin R, watching the music video for The Clencher. Like, that is such a great album. I think This Type of Thing Can Do Us In is kind of probably like their best album, but obviously there's an album that I put higher up. This one just has the most like loved tracks on here. We got The Clencher. Which is kind of their best opening track. We got Vitamin R, which is kind of, to me, a better version of Send the Pain Below. Kind of like a more mellow, heavy track, but like that chorus is pretty iconic. Breech Birth and Panic Prone, dude. Two other favorite songs of mine. And another Know-It-All. The fucking chorus to Another Know-It-All makes me want to like skateboard and listen to Tony Hawk. Like just that aggressive, clean singing with that grit. Like I love it. To Return and Panic Prone are very sentimental songs for me. I listened to this album quite a bit during the winter of 2010. So I got good memories to those. And then Emotional Drought and Bend the Bracket are pretty solid closing tracks. So this album pretty much comfortably got an 8.5 out of 10. Very much a more refined and more well-balanced version of like Wonder What's Next. Kind of a perfect median spot between Wonder What's Next and then, of course, the top album, which I've seen nobody else put this one at the very top, Venocera. This is my number one choice. Anti-Saint is kind of, along with The Clincher, the absolute best opening track for Chevelle. And Family System. Their top 3 albums all have their best opening tracks. Fuck it. Their top 4 albums all have their best opening tracks. How could I forget Sleep Apnea? But Anti-Saint, dude. The guitar tones, the bass, the drumming, like this is just such a sonically well-recorded album. Brainiac is a great follow-up to Anti-Saint, so there's no second track drop that I see in other Chevelle albums. It picks back up phenomenally with Safe Waters, just that beautiful transition between heavy low-end drop B riffage to clean guitars, beautiful singing, but then like it goes right back into the heavy transition of a chorus. It's just such a perfectly fluid album that really checks off all the sounds that Chevelle did so well. And then, of course, as you heard at the top of the podcast, my amazing rendition of probably the best Chevelle song, Well Enough Alone. I love that song. I love that chorus. I love that chord progression. It reminds me of Hooch from Sum 41. Same key. Straight Jacket Fashion. It's got that super heavy chorus, or that da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na, that pre-chorus. Yeah, there's really the only song on here, the only 2 tracks on here that out of 11 songs, 9 of them are like super memorable and awesome. The other 2, Midnight to Midnight and Saturdays, are still great songs. They're just not as implanted in my brain as like memorable or to this day their best. But I get it. Another top Chevelle song towards the back end of this album. Venocera is their most consistent album. 9 out of 11 songs are extremely memorable to me. You know, The Fad, Humanoid, Paint the Seconds. Like there's just so many. There's so many hooks. There's so many catchy choruses. There's so many great guitar parts that make me happy as a guitarist. And then again, just the drumming and the bass sound excellent too. So Venocera to me is Chevelle's absolute best album. It's got an 8.75 out of 10. It's really no contest, but I did have to go back and revisit it. I always thought this would be their best, but had to double check to make sure it wasn't Wonder What's Next or this type of thing it could do us in. So to quickly recap, from 9 to 1, point number 1, La Guergala, Hats Off to the Bull, Neuratias, North Corridor, Sci-Fi Crimes, Wonder What's Next, This Type of Thing Can Do Us In, and Venocera. Top 10 songs are Vitamin R, Another Know-It-All, Don't Fake This, Straight Jacket Fashion, Anti-Saint, Family System, Sleep Apnea, The Red, Well Enough Alone, and The Clincher. So my top 10 Chevelle songs are all off their top 4 albums. Thank you guys for listening to this Ranked and Reviewed. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. Check out my other Ranked and Reviewed. I mostly do metal music, but I also do some hard rock. I did Foo Fighters recently. I did Limp Bizkit recently. So be sure to check out the Ranked and Reviewed playlist. And make sure you leave a comment on what you agree with and what you disagree with. Do you have any great Chevelle stories? Do you have any favorite tracks? How would you rank yours differently? What are your favorite songs off of certain albums? What's your perspective? Like I said, I'm a vocalist, but I've also been playing guitar for 15 years. Maybe that wasn't reflected very well on the opening track or the opening bit of this podcast, but I'm having fun here. If you're going to be critical, like just fuck it, man. Just fuck it. You can't. I have so much fucking confidence that you cannot tear me down. Like I can't be fucked with. I'm almost at 160 subscribers. Like you cannot fuck with this level of God. Anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace!